has an article for us.
Oh yeah. Roll that beautiful bean footage. Okay. So one of my favorite shows of all time was a show called Heroes. And Heroes came at a really awkward time in the entertainment industry where the writer's strike happened. And when the writer's strike happened, most of our favorite shows from around the 2008, 2007 era were completely destroyed because the substitute writers had no idea what the vision of the shows were. So they kind of just threw some stuff together so the shows could continue airing because of the contracts. Heroes is one of those shows. This right here is a person named Leonard Roberts. And if I scroll up for us a little bit, there we have one of the show creators on the bottom left. And the top right was his co star, Ali Larter. You might know her from Resident Evil and various other films and movies. You know, she has been someone who has been one of America's sweethearts over the last few years. If you don't recognize Leonard Roberts, you
What's her
probably
name?
have never seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, American Crime, or Drumline. So yeah, he was that guy in Drumline. Okay, so I'm not going to read the entire article to you, but I'm going to give you an overview of it. And
Post it in the private chat, and I'll post it for everybody else if they want to take a look at it. Just once you're finished.
I got you right now. So Leonard Roberts, if you were fans of the show, Leonard Roberts was a character that had the ability to walk through walls, and this was his superpower. So Heroes is a show about literal superheroes. They're regular people that got powers overnight, and they never really explained how these powers came about being, because some of these people had powers hundreds of years ago. So it's apparently a genetic thing that just triggers in the human race. It's kind of like a mutation.
Spoiler alert.
So so I mean, the show was 12 years old. It's spoiled by now. So everyone wondered what happened to this character because as um as a person of color, you know, they didn't have very much representation of people of color on the show. There were only three of them at the time, which was Leonard himself, his biracial son in the show,
The
and
Asian dude.
another character who was a very minor character. We're not going to count Hero as far as that. No offense to any of our Asian viewers, but
Why not?
Hero was a completely different story. Because for this one, because he wasn't American, he was Japanese. This is only of the Americans that we're talking about right now.
Uh,
So in the show, he was married to Ali Larter, who had a bipolar disorder as part of her superpower, but it gave her these fantastic strength abilities. Um, he was originally in the pilot, which I saw, and they took him out of the first episode of the show, and they didn't introduce his character until episode 6. Um, he sat on the sidelines every night after shooting all of these scenes for this show, trying to wonder when are they going to actually introduce his character because they've been talking about him the entire time, but they'd always cut his scenes. And it came to him walking out of prison and going home to his wife, which was Ali Lauder. And in one of the scenes, you see them laying in the bed. She's fully clothed. He is not. And from a viewer
boo.
standpoint and a person that's been in a relationship, how often are two people who are in a relationship, married, children, in various states of dress, that don't match, especially on television? So the beef came down to the director asked her, "Can you do me a favor? We don't want you to get naked, nothing like that, because this is a ABC or a NBC show. I just want you to lower your straps down to about here and then pull the blanket up so it looks like you guys are in similar states of dress." Um, she refused flat out. She stopped filming. She went into the private office and she proceeded to yell at them about how disrespected she was. But if anyone remembers 2 episodes earlier, she was literally in lingerie and dancing on Nathan Petrelli, who happens to be a Caucasian character in the show. Um, so they asked her, "What was the problem with this? With you doing the scene? Like, no one thought that it was an issue. We didn't ask you to touch anyone." And Leonard stated, it's in the article as well, but Leonard stated that, when he felt wholly uncomfortable shooting the scene with her because of her rant beforehand. So in the scene, he looks awkward. He has his hands up above the covers, trying to make sure that she's not going to be accused of anything. Because let's keep it real. One of the biggest things that a black man can face is an accusation from their white partner or any partner, honestly, in America, because it's not going to go well for you, especially someone who's famous. And She pulled him aside after the rant, and she tried to get the show of solidarity from him. Like, I didn't mean anything but to you about it. But as time goes on, she continually complained about him over and over and over again. And she came to him one day and said, "Our cover, which was a picture of their show son and her and him in the woods together, as like a family picture." And she said, "Our magazine cover is selling less than all the other magazine covers." Even though the show was doing millions of sales at the time and it had millions of viewers. And it was one of the top rated shows in that first season that they had on NBC. They had the prime spot. Wednesday nights were prime Wednesday nights on NBC back in the late 2000s. And he was confused by it, and he didn't speak out against her publicly, but the news articles kept coming out about how she was bad mouthing him over and over again, and how every time she had to do a scene with him, she was utterly disgusted by his presence. And finally, at the end of season one, they had a cliffhanger as usual with these type of shows. And the show directors brought him in the office and said, "So, Leonard, we love you, but we're not bringing your character back. We're actually going to kill him off in the off season. You're not going to get an on-screen death. There's not going to be any real resolution there. We're just going to write you off. It's going to be like one sentence. Oh, Leonard died in between these seasons." And he said, "My character is one of the most beloved characters, seeing as how I'm the only black man on the show, and I just don't know what's going on. I thought that we were representing, the new America, that there are interracial couples and that couples do face problems, whether it be mental health, whether it be incarceration, or whether it be just trying to make it, because we weren't a rich family, but we were just trying to get there. I got out of jail, had my job. I was, not using my powers for wrong, and I was helping my, bipolar schizophrenic wife with these abilities." And they told him, they said, "Well, she doesn't like working with you, and there's no way that we could try to write this in there. You guys do the majority of your scenes away from each other, and it has been that way because she doesn't like working with you and she feels uncomfortable around you. And we're just gonna go with her on this one because it doesn't make sense to try to rewrite the entire story for the show to fit a divorce separation." So his question is, and as you guys will probably agree with him and me on, is you have a show about people who can fly, people who can miraculously heal from any injury, people who can teleport to different times, spaces, and all of the run the gamut of powers in the show. But you can't write a story about a couple getting divorced due to their problems. And he was like, "I just don't understand why this is like this." Because he signed a 3-season contract along with everyone else, but they dropped him early. And their excuse was, "Well, you're going to be working in the industry for a long time. We're not going to blackball you. Like, just don't give us any negative press." So it's been 12 years since this happened to him, and we haven't seen him in very much. If you remember, he was one of the excellent members in Drumline. He was a regular on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and American Crime Story. We haven't seen him in very much since, but it's because he got this bad reputation from working with these people on this show. And while he's never badmouthed them before, he finally came out in light of the Me Too movement and started talking about this. And I mean, it's pretty much self-explanatory here. And they told him before he walked out the door, "Don't look at this as a black man losing and a white woman winning." And he literally stood up at that moment and said, "This is the first time that anyone has said anything about my race on this show. We don't even talk about the fact that the couple is interracial couple in the show. It's never mentioned in the show that they're interracial. It's just seen on television as normal." He goes, "This is the first time that I'm hearing about this from anyone that has anything to do with the show, and it's honestly disgusting." So he walked out, and they didn't ever mention his character again after that. It's kind of like he just kind of vanished, and they never talked about it ever again. And I got to say that, you guys can check the rest of the article out, especially if you like the show. I still am a fan of the show, although I'm very disgusted by hearing this. Um, I kind of feel like this happens a lot in a lot of different places, whether it be workplaces or whether it be groups or whether it be any of those things where people get treated a certain way because of what they look like. And I for one, I'm not going to stand for that, especially because I think television and the media should reflect what we go through on a daily basis, and that is what they were doing is showing what people actually go through on a daily basis. And anyone that's ever been in an interracial relationship knows that having two people with two separate backgrounds is not the easiest thing to do in the world, especially when you throw in mental illness, incarceration of the man, so to say, and fighting the system. And I thought that that's what they wanted to do with this show, was show that humanity is resilient, although very ugly, because that was the major theme of the show for all of those seasons. But it looks like sometimes you can write a story and not necessarily believe in your own story.
K, eres. What up, K? Has the power of incorporeality, and they had him shot in the back.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. He can literally pass through objects, and he got shot in the back.
Like he got shot more times than Tupac in the series. And I'm not saying that as a joke. If you watch the show, they were literally like the last 3 appearances, they had him getting shot every episode. And it was so crazy because this dude is intangible.
How does he wear clothes?
Oh, it's kind of like if you watch The Boys, The Deep, how he has that invisibility of the type of thing. Well, it's not exactly the same as that one.
No, not the Deep.
Intangibility.
You're talking about the other one.
Yeah, well, it's what I mean by it's not a permanent thing. He can turn it on and turn it off anytime he wants.
Yeah.
I have a question on that, and it kind of goes with Ghost as well. How do they not fall through the floor?
Can you speak that in English?
Well, if you can walk through walls, how do you not fall through the floor?
You have to. Well, there's a really good anime you should watch called My Hero Academia.
Yeah,
there's a guy who has that power, and he had to train so that he would only do sections of his body at a time, so he can pass through things. So he has to like turn incorporeal whilst going through things, but then undo it so that he could step back on the floor. Because if he just turns it on and doesn't turn it off, he'll just sink through everything and just die.
I was thinking of
it's kind of like
I was thinking of Kitty Pryde from the X-Men, who can fade through walls.
Right.
So have you ever seen? So we're gonna use a common superhero here that most people should know about, Superman.
Boo! No.
I'm with you on this, but Superman is a good one because a lot of people know Superman. It's better than me talking about Ichigo or something like that, because most people are gonna be like, huh? Scratch it. You know what I mean? So Superman is a good example because Superman has this cosmic strength, but he has to live an everyday life. What they don't show in these types of shows, and even books and movies, is that what it took to these characters to develop the control over their abilities. So, for example, he might be able to walk straight through a wall if he wants to, but he's controlling that down to every molecule in his body. If you understand what I'm saying, every cell is being controlled, and it takes time to learn.
Well, back to what the article was speaking on. I think people are starting to understand and realize now in 2020, seen as the Grammys are kind of getting protested and boycotted. Not everything is for everybody. So if that's the story you want to be, then there are certain avenues that you cannot take to get there, and you will never get recognized by certain people. And that's something that you just kind of have to take on the chin and keep moving. And luckily enough, a lot of newer people like Netflix and Amazon, they're having more integrated and outsider written shows that are doing amazingly well. So it's profitable and it's great, but you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get that praise from everybody.
There's also a backlash, especially over here, where every advert break, most adverts have a person of color, or a woman, or someone who has a disability in the advert, and people in the main are just cool, but then you've got this hardcore of people that say, oh, well, that's not representative, because you see an Indian lady walking down the street hand in hand with an old man, an old white man, and I'm going to send you some screenshots of different adverts and stuff, so you can all kind of get an idea of what it is. And people are like, "Oh, this ain't real life. This ain't what's going on." And I'm like, do you need to question yourself a little bit there? When you sit there counting how many non-white faces are on the telly,
I'm
You know,
I'm gonna
why
say
does
this.
it all of a sudden matter?
Do you
And
remember the Cheerios commercial that had the black dad sleeping on the couch, and his mother, or the daughter's mother, was in the kitchen, and the daughter runs up and says something to the mother, and she says, "Well, go get your dad for it." And she literally goes out and grabs her dad, and her dad's just like this beefy looking brother, and everyone lost it
Describe
about
him slower and use more words.
this pretty
Brenna's having a
this pretty
moment.
little white lady with this beefy brother and this cute little girl in this Cheerios commercial, and everybody lost their flipping shits.
Was
And
it
I'm going to
Wayne?
say this, being one of the first
To
people
answer
to
your
say this,
question, to,
you can
to
answer
answer
it.
your question, no, no, I don't remember that commercial
I don't
because we
remember
didn't have
either.
Cheerios here
So,
until
please, our glorious
2018.
editor in chief, Mikey, if you can find that commercial while I talk, please do.
Nope.
I don't think we could
Not
go
doing
in.
it. Not
Oh, we
doing it.
can't play it, can we? No.
Nope. I'm
Okay,
not
so
doing
you
it.
guys can look it up. It's a Cheerios commercial. It'll be probably the one that's on there the most. But what I'm saying about this is this: I think most of us here, as well as most of the people that are watching, we don't see a person and say, "That's a beautiful black girl," or "That's a beautiful white woman." We say, "Man, she's good looking," or "Man, that's a good looking guy." And I think that our society, for the most part, is moving towards people like people because people are attractive to them. And me, I have no preference on who I choose to fall for, fall in love with, or create a family with, or even just let's just be nasty about it. Sometimes you just want to do something,
The
you know.
thing is, Cortez, beggars can't be choosers, really, can they?
No, stop it. Cortez, can you please never do that again? That was the most uncomfortable thing
That's because
ever.
you're on an
But,
iPad. The resolution's not the best. I got you.
yeah, that was the issue. No, but here's the deal: sexual preference doesn't have to be racist, right? So if you're so just because you are attractive to people of a certain ethnicity or skin color or blue eyes or blonde hair or red hair or whatever, it's
Or feathers.
or feathers.
You know your girlfriend is a bird.
That
All
that
right, we're not showing a video. I'm just going to show a screenshot, right? So this is the little girl in question. If you
Looks really familiar, doesn't she, Wayne?
if you think that her dad is going to be anything other than black, you're in a world of trouble.
All right, Brenda, you tag in on this, and then we got to go to the next thing.
What do you want? I mean, I think
Tell us
we all
about your predilections.
put. No.
Patreon exclusive.
Especially in Hollywood, there's a leadership is a huge deal, and if you have a leader, if you have somebody in charge of your TV show who won't recognize that one person having power over a scene is not going to work out. Like it's poor writing, it's poor leadership, and something it should have been done better. And of course, there are going to be situations now that we're going to be seeing, and I'm hoping that that these stories do come to light so that we understand what's going on and that we can appreciate the true artists.
Yeah.
Final word before we move on. Guys, it might be very difficult for some people to understand, but I'm going to say this. It doesn't matter where they come from.
So if you turn
If
into
you
the
like
rock,
them.
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. That's all I got to say about it. It doesn't matter where they come from, what their race is. If you like them, you like them. Stop judging others for it, and stop worrying about what you look like, liking someone that doesn't look like you.
Yeah, suckers.